All right, well, last week we launched a 10-week series on the spiritual gifts. And if you weren't here, man, I cannot encourage you enough to go back and listen to that because it was really pivotal for kind of laying the foundation of the rest of these weeks, right? We defined what spiritual gifts are. And we said it was this: various abilities given by God's grace to all believers in order to minister to other people with a heightened effectiveness. And that effectiveness is empowered by, and in fact, it's actually the presence of the Holy Spirit, ultimately for the building up of the church. Woo! I know you guys memorized that this last week, and you're just holding that. No, you haven't. So here's a shorter definition: Spirit-empowered abilities to minister to others. Okay? What's a spiritual gift? A Spirit-empowered ability to minister to other people. And we went through 7 key principles, and we ended with this long list of prayers to be praying over the course of this series for our church. And we said, hey, the goal of this series is to help you, number 1, clarify what the gifts are. 2, identify what your gifts are. And 3, actually use them, right? Like at the end of the day, we don't want you on the sidelines wondering where you fit on God's team. We want you on the field, playing your position and enjoying it, right? And as you do, the result is this: as you're unleashing your gifts, other people are cared for and built up. And the church as a whole is strengthened, we're unified, and our mission is far more effective. That's what happens when the Holy Spirit is treasured and trusted. His power and presence show up. And so from this point on in the series now, we're actually going to be diving into specific gifts. What are they? How do I know if I have them? How do I use them? And we're going to get into 3 different gifts today. All right. What I want to ask you, what do these 6 things have in common? I'm going to give you 6 things. What do they have in common? Number 1, pillows. Okay. Plumbing. Piston rings. Think about this. Police. There's our Moore Police Department. Potholders. And number 6, your gut. Oh, I had you, didn't I? I had you. You're like, oh man, I got this. No, you don't. No, actually, you don't. What do these things have in common? What do they all share? Here's the answer. As long as they're working and doing their job, you don't notice them. But once something's wrong with them, the effects are disastrous. Okay? Think back. Oh, okay. Yeah, right? If they're good, we're good. But any breakdowns in these cause major breakdowns in us. In other words, they're assumed but essential. They're underappreciated, yet crucial. They're often invisible, and yet they're always indispensable. Take them away, and you're in trouble. Now, I want to zoom into the last one on there, the gut. Okay, for a minute, you medical, health-loving people, here you go. I'll probably screw this up. You can correct me later. The gut, okay, this area generally, right, is the body's logistical hub. The stomach, the intestines are doing things you didn't even know they were doing. Of course, they're intaking fuel, they're providing spare parts, amino acids, they're absorbing nutrients, they're transforming other things into nutrients, they're killing unwanted bacteria, and yes, they're pushing out things that we will not name. Did you know a huge portion of your immune system is in your gut? Did you know your gut affects your heart, affects your brain, affects your mood, affects your sleep, affects your circulation? It is, in other words, foundational to all your other functions, and it's doing the body's dirty jobs. The jobs that no other part wants to do, the unseen, overlooked kind of jobs. And yet, at the end of the day, it is just as critical to your long-term health as your heart, as your lungs, as your brain. It literally powers you. If it breaks down, you break down. That's exactly like the 3 gifts we're going to examine today. If they break down, we as a church break down. They're the gut health of the well, powering our church behind the scenes. Now, before we get into them and I reveal which ones we're going through today, I need to say a few words to you because it's easy in this room to think, oh, I only need to tune in to the gifts that I have, right? As soon as he says the gift, I'm checking out to the next 10 minutes, and then maybe I'll check back in for the next gift. So hold up. I need to give you a few reminders for this whole series. Number one, when we're talking about gifts that maybe aren't your gifts, number one, know all the roles, okay? If you were in theater or dance or played any sport that has positions, you kind of were encouraged to know all the different roles, not just your role, right? What happens if someone goes down and you're thrust into that position, right? You don't need to just know your routes as a receiver. You need to probably know the other ones as well. If you're playing basketball, what happens if the defense breaks down and needs weak side help, right? You got to be aware of the whole, know the other roles. Number two, affirm others of their role. So part of the gift of God's grace in this series is going to be using people in this room to affirm other people in this room, hey, I see this in you, right? How are you going to know that if you're not hearing and paying attention to what the different roles are? I hope that as you're hearing these things, even if you're like, that's not me, it is this person, this person, this person, I want to go tell them that after the service. Number three, care for others. So I'm going to have some points at the end of each spiritual gift for those who don't possess this gift. Here's how you can love these people well, right? Because at the end of the day, whatever your gifts are, what's the goal of those gifts? Remember, we heard this last week, to minister to others, okay? Question, how do you know how to use your gift for others if you don't know how those others function and what they are like, right? Husbands, in order to love your wife, you got to what? Learn your wife, right? Same concept here. Learn the other gifts so that you can care for those people, because we saw last week, gifts without love are worthless. And lastly, pursue more gifts. 1 Corinthians 14:1 and actually chapter 12 is going to tell us to eagerly desire the spiritual gifts. And it says, especially that you may prophesy. Very, very interesting, right? If we had all the gifts we were ever going to have at once and just one and done, why would the Bible suggest, actually encourage, maybe even we might say command you to pursue more gifts? Could it be that the Lord, over the course of following him, would actually along the way deposit additional gifts? Yeah. And so perhaps you don't have that gift now. Maybe you will. Maybe, in fact, this series is going to be one of the ways the Lord says, hey, ask me for this. Okay? So let's lean in on each gift, whether you have that gift or not. All right, here we go. Gift number one, 1 Corinthians 12:28. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing. Here's the one we're zeroing in on. Helping. And then it goes on to say some others. Helping, to aid, to relieve, to support, and render assistance in times of hardship. This word's only found here in the New Testament. We don't have a lot on this word, so we got to break it down a little bit. It's antilepsis in the Greek. So break it down. Anti, against or opposite. Lepsis, which means to shake or to seize, like epileptic seizure, or to grip. Okay, so opposite, grip. Okay, so picture me taking hold of one of those tables back there, trying to lift it. And I can't do it by myself. Obviously, I can't do it by myself. And so I need someone else, and someone else sees that, and they run to the other side of the table, and they provide an opposite grip to help me lift the table. That is the essence of this, to assist someone else in accomplishing their task, whether it's helping leaders or helping someone in need. You're coming alongside someone in menial meeting of needs to provide the opposite grip. It's unseen assistance. And at the end of the day, it increases other people's effectiveness. So whenever you playing your role enables someone else to play theirs, that's antilepsis. That's helping. Well, that sounds a lot, Tyler, like the gift of serving. Romans 12:7. If service, then let's use that gift of God's grace in our serving. 1 Peter 4:11. Whoever serves as one who serves by the strength of God. Well, wait a minute, Tyler. Aren't we all supposed to serve as believers? Yes. Thank you for catching that. We are. Galatians 5:13. Don't use your freedom for yourself, but through love, serve one another. Matthew 20, which we just heard read, whoever would be great among you must be your what? Servant. So, yes, this is a universal call to every believer. No one gets to opt out of serving. And yes, also the goal of every spiritual gift is to serve. You remember this from last week? 1 Peter 4:10, use whatever gift you have to. There it is, serve, diakonos, same word, serve or to minister, right? So all of us are called to serve, and all of us are called to use our gifts ultimately to serve, but yet there's still a distinct spiritual gift of serving. Some have a spirit-empowered ability to do this. So here's the deal. I'm going to do this with every gift. We're going to give a rundown, okay? So I'm going to give a rundown of a definition, and then we're going to get into other things about the gift. Here's the definition of serving/helping. The ability to identify practical needs and undone tasks and joyfully complete them to provide supportive assistance. These are people who like to get the job done, right? Behind the scenes, meeting practical needs, accomplishing practical tasks. Well, wait, are these the same gifts, Tyler? They're different words. Well, I think there's a lot of overlap here. And if there was a distinction, what I found is it might be that helping is more of a people-focused word and serving is more of a task-focused word. But I don't think it's that clear-cut, right? Because when you are helping people, you're inevitably doing practical tasks. And whenever you're doing practical tasks, you're inevitably doing them what? To help people. So we're treating these as the same gift, okay? The gift of serving or helping. So I gave you a long definition. Now, what is it in a word? In a word, we would just say helper, right? A selfless and supportive role. What are some biblical examples of this gift? Man, do you not think of Martha right away? Like, I know she gets a bad rap, right? But she totally has the gift of serving. Now, she's misusing that gift in Luke 10, but she's properly using that gift later, we see in John 12, too, okay? How about Paul's companions? He mentions constantly, if you look these people up, they're totally using their gift of service. Epaphras, Tychicus, Epaphroditus, Mark. Stephanus' household, 1 Corinthians 16:15, it says they devoted themselves to the service, the diakonos, of the saints. How about Phoebe in Romans 16? Man, she served the church in a particularly effective way. Now, all these characters, notice, are pretty background characters, right? That's kind of the point of this gift. They're not in the spotlight. One more, Mark 15, you see Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. And it says that when Jesus was in Galilee in his 3 years of ministry, they followed him and they what? Ministered to him, served, diakonos. There it is, behind the scenes supporting him in his ministry. All right, how do you know if you have this gift? Number 4, marks that you may have this gift. If this is you, if you start hitting some of these boxes, you like to get stuff done. You recognize needs and you're drawn to quickly meet them. You enjoy helping others become more effective in their ministry, or you seek out ways to serve behind the scenes. Maybe if you're content in a supportive role rather than a leadership role. I think serving people are often detail-oriented and they're task-driven. They like to relieve leaders of those routine tasks, and they will stay with a project until it is completed. Serving people love to have satisfaction in seeing a job that gets finished, goals accomplished, right? You want to check that off. They naturally tend to put others' needs ahead of their own, and there is joy in enabling the success of the overall mission. All right, I'm sure that's pegging some of you in the room. Now, what is the goal of this gift? So if our church is functioning well and you guys are using this gift, what will happen? Well, people's needs will be met. Leaders are freed up and energized. Tasks aren't falling through the cracks, and our church is more efficient and effective. And because internal needs are being met, we can actually focus more externally. I like the word assistance for this spiritual gift. So think about in sports, when you make an assist, you are not scoring the goal or the point or the run. You're what? You're setting up the score. That's kind of the same concepts. We see this concept actually in Acts chapter 6. If you're not familiar with this, the early church is just getting going, and there's a big problem. There's a practical need that's getting overlooked and neglected. It's the distribution of food to certain widows, right? And what do the apostles do? They come together and they say, hey, in verse 2, it's not right that we should give up preaching the word in order to serve tables. Diakoneo, right? Now, this is not them arrogant saying we're better than that. Look what they say. Let's appoint people to this duty while we devote ourselves to our duty, prayer and the ministry of the word. Bingo. So do you see the supportive element here? I'm going to do my job so that you can do yours. In fact, that's the pattern for where we get deacons, right? Deacons are just lead servants. So if you have gift of service, but also maybe some gift of administration or leadership, that's where that comes together and forms a deacon combo. All right, what's the picture of the church? For each gift, I'm going to kind of give an image. If the church is doing this well, we are like in this case, I came up with a restaurant, right? We take care of the essential tasks. We're fueling you to do what you need to go do. We're waiting tables and serving. When you operate in your spiritual gift of service, you are displaying what character of God? Humility. You're showing God's humility. Okay, make this tangible for me, Tyler. How do I use this gift? How do I apply this? Well, there's some obvious ways, obvious ministries in the church. Where's my setup team? Where's my parking team? Parking team, raise your hand. Come on. Yes? Like the most overlooked, don't even think about. Thank you, parking team. I love you guys. Yes. And I know you hate this moment right now. You're like, I just want to be behind the scenes. Yeah. Greeting, hospitality, our AV team. Go talk to Isaac if you want to serve in production, AV. If you want to help and serve the worship team, talk to Ryan. How about photography or social media? How about our security team, right? How about our events team? Go talk to Rachel. You want to use your gift of service to help her. And where is Sean? Oh boy, well, kids, come on. Yes, I think you're actually going to be on every one of these gifts. Like, go talk to Sean. Go talk to Sean. Go talk to Sean, right? Yeah. Gift of prophecy, go talk to Sean. Okay, no, maybe not. I don't know. Go to our deacons. Where's our deacon? Shane Fairchild. Where are you at? Right there. Tony Merrill, where are you at? There you are. Catherine Ann. I don't know if you're here. Oh, in the back. There we go. Yes, go talk to our deacons. Hey, how can I help you? What do you need? What practical assistance is there that I can provide? Okay, so that's obvious things. How about more organic opportunities? I'm always going to bring it back to GC, because where we're going to flex our gifts probably first and best is in community. How about working on someone's car? How about bringing them a meal, opening your home, mowing a lawn? I heard someone helping someone fix their fence recently. A few weeks ago when we had those tornadoes and storms coming, I got this text in the middle of it. It said, if you hear of any emergency needs for quick overnight fix repairs, for any damage from anyone, let me know and I'll happily run out there and do what I can. That's spiritual gift of service right there. Even kind of outside ministry, then you could maybe go to Logan. Hey, how can I help with global missions? Or Daryl, how can I help with our benevolence ministry? Or our partners like Grace Home, they need spiritual gift serving people. All right. Now, you can misuse your gifts, you guys. Okay, we saw Martha do that. So this section is designed, if you have this gift, here's some weaknesses and warnings to watch out for, okay? Number one, it might be hard for you to say no, and you can often take on too much. You can see it as a duty or obligation over time and be void of the joy and gladness in it. Maybe you treat it transactionally. Maybe you hope you'll receive something in return. Here's the big one, number 4, what Martha forgot, to rest and sit at Jesus' feet first, right? Worshiper before a worker, okay? That's huge if you're a spiritual gift of service. Be before do. Doesn't mean don't do, just be before do. You can become a doormat or a martyr, or you might even become pushy or overly interfering out of your eagerness to help. You're like, oh, I've never done that. Yeah, you might have, right? How about this one? Ooh, this one hits hard. The potential to neglect your own personal health or your family's needs because you're too busy helping others. Sometimes you might become critical towards those who don't detect and meet obvious needs. Why aren't you? I mean, it's obvious, right? It might be hard to accept being served by others, and you may easily be hurt when unappreciated. Okay, I want to encourage you. If you have the spiritual gift of service, or you're thinking that might be you, I want to encourage you. Number one, be an initiator. Don't wait to be asked. Ask. You have the gift. Plunge into it. See the need, meet the need. Number two, serve. This is 1 Peter 4:11. It says, serve with God's strength, not yours, which is particularly easy to do in this gift, to just use your strength, to just plow forward and grind and go, because it's such a doing gift, and you forget to do it with his strength, and you become self-reliant. Guess what? You do that over years, you wake up cold, embittered, and void of the flame and desire to serve. So use the Lord's strength, not yours. And third, remember the big picture. What you're doing matters to the mission. I know it's not glamorous, I know it's ordinary, but you take it away and there's massive ripple effects. Without serving and helping, our church's gears grind. We need you. You're like the tiny little unseen muscles that enable the other muscles to function. And everyone else, if you don't have the spiritual gift of service yet, let me encourage you to do two things. Number one, appreciate those who do. They need appreciation, y'all. They're not robots. They're not machines. Notice them. Say thank you. Send them texts. And number two, remember, all of us are called to serve. So just because that might be their gift doesn't exempt us. All right. Spiritual gift number two, Romans 12:8. The one who does acts of mercy with cheerfulness. Now, this is interesting. This word is actually the verb form. Like literally it says the one who mercies, which is why it says does acts of mercy or shows mercy. This is not just something you have or feel, it's something what? You do. You do mercy. So when we think about mercy, the Greek is talking about to console, to have compassion, to come alongside and help those who are afflicted, okay? When we see in the Gospels people constantly calling out to Jesus, have mercy on me, Jesus, this is the word. And when we see those people, go back, every one of them is what? In a dire situation. They're blind, they're demonically oppressed or possessed, they're lame, they're sick, they're diseased, they're poor, right? In other words, these are people who are suffering. Maybe physically, maybe emotionally, maybe spiritually, maybe mentally. And if you have the gift of mercy, you're first going to feel deep concern and compassion towards those who are hurting. And then second, though, you act to relieve that suffering. So you're moved by the need and you're moved to meet the need. So here's the rundown. Here's the definition. Spiritual gift of mercy, the ability to feel genuine compassion towards those suffering and enter into their pain with caring comfort and alleviating acts. So in a word, this is caring, okay? Here's some biblical examples of the gift. Tabitha, out of Acts 9:36, says that she did acts of charity. That's the same root word, mercy. Right? How about the Good Samaritan? You know the story. The one who everyone else avoided, he was drawn towards. And he went to him and he bound up his wounds and he took care of him at the cost of his own expense, right? How about Ruth towards her mother-in-law, Naomi? Or Boaz towards Ruth? Here's one you probably haven't thought about, Nehemiah. Wait, Nehemiah, I thought that was the manly man, Nehemiah. Yeah, in chapter 1, he hears the report of what's going on in Jerusalem and how the city is broken down hundreds of miles away, and what does he do? He weeps for days. That's the first thing. He weeps and he prays for days. And then, yes, he makes the journey and does something about it. Spiritual gift of mercy. Okay, marks you may have this gift. Well, you're sensitive towards those who are hurting. And you can quickly kind of discern maybe what the deeper level need is, like beneath the surface. You have sympathy that just kind of flows naturally for people who are in trials or hardships, and you quickly understand what someone's going through. You're drawn to marginalized and overlooked people, even when you don't know them. You're burdened to pray for people often. You want to walk alongside those in distress, and you're patient with them in bearing their burdens. Typically, mercy people are good listeners, and they have really kind dispositions. They can also easily match people emotionally. So rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. They're eager to care for and comfort those in pain to see them relieved, and they'll stay with people over the long haul to see them through the healing process. You might even feel compassion for people, even when their suffering is directly related to their sin. So everyone else is going, well, it's their fault. You're like, oh, but I just want to help them, right? That's you. You're comfortable with the ministry of presence, and you're pulled towards crisis situations rather than avoiding them. Naturally, you can be very trusting of people, and you can easily detect insincerity in others. You're also very careful with your words. You want to avoid hurting people. And ultimately, being with those who are hurting is an energizer to you rather than bringing you down. Okay. What's the goal of this gift? If you're using this gift, then nobody's unseen in our church in their suffering, right? Suffering is going to occur. At any slice of time in our church, there's going to be a swath of people hurting. The mercy people make sure they're not doing it alone. Okay? That's so critical. So that hurting people get cared for and helped towards their healing in the Lord, right? So you're the spiritual and physical and emotional medics that are getting the wounded warriors back on the battlefield, which is why my image for this one for the church is a hospital. When we're functioning well in this, the church is a hospital for the broken. And the character of God that's on display is compassion. Okay, so how do I use this gift? Well, obvious ways would be our counseling ministry, right? Just took a huge group of people down to the ABC counseling conference this weekend. This is counseling ministry, but this is our prayer teams. Talk to Terrell. We have a lot of different types of prayer teams, a great way to minister to others. Benevolence ministry. This is Daryl. You're drawn to those who are hurting. Man, I know he would love for others to step into that with him. How about Well Kids again? All right. And in GC, let's talk more organically. Listen, this is so important, y'all. When this one doesn't happen, we break down as a church. So I want to emphasize this. Personally following up with people who are going through hard things. When someone shares something in GC and they go weeks and don't hear a thing, how painful is that? How much does that add to the pain of what they're already experiencing, right? If you have the gift of mercy, hey, jump into that. Follow up. Hey, I'm praying for you. How you doing with this? Go be with them. Hospital visits, meal trains, having an eye towards widows and single moms and those without family and minorities and elderly and singles and children, disabled, sick. Like all these fit those categories. So I think immediately of Grace Home, right? Great place to use that gift. Talk to Jillian about that. I think foster and adoption. Who in this room is fostering or has adopted or is in the process of adoption? Please raise your hand. I want to identify you. Come on. Yes, I'm looking at you guys. Okay. These people need your support. Okay? You can't just applaud them and go, hey, good job. I could never do that. They need you rallying around them. They're taking on something really, really hard. Maybe you're a gift of mercy. You're like, oh, maybe that is a way that I could jump into a needed space. Absolutely. Talk to some of these people who just raised their hand. All right, ways to misuse this gift. If you're a mercy person, here's some warnings and weaknesses to watch out for. You can easily be taken advantage of without some wise boundaries. This is a huge one, and I have done this a lot. Emotional enmeshment. You absorb the weight of others onto you, okay? The heaviness, all of that, it really becomes your heaviness if you're not careful. You can be overly sensitive and easily be hurt yourself. Sometimes we tend to be guided by emotions too much over reason, or we can become indecisive in the swirl of feelings. People with the gift of mercy may sometimes exclusively only show mercy when a person needs more than just mercy. They might also need a word of rebuke or correction or teaching. And so we might hinder the healing process by not providing that. You might have a difficulty being firm, even when being firm is necessary. And sometimes you can tend to concentrate just on the physical or emotional needs over the spiritual. And I think mercy people hear this one. It's easy to get frustrated or sad when you wonder why others don't see or feel with the compassion that you have, right? It's easy to isolate in your emotions. And so here's my encouragement to you. If you're a mercy person, number one, you're not alone, okay? It's easy to think you're the only one who sees this or feels this, but you're not. I promise you, the church is littered with people with mercy gifts. And when you see someone who doesn't see or feel what you have, remember, it's probably because they're not gifted in that way. It doesn't mean they're wrong, right? They just maybe don't have what you have. Number two, don't just feel, you need to act in this gift. It's not enough just to feel compassion. The gift is acts of mercy. Number three, keep going. It is easy to grow compassion fatigue, is it not? This is my plea to you to keep going. The only way you're going to keep going in the gift of mercy is what? Going to the one who has storehouses of it. He never gets compassion fatigue, so you need to keep connecting back to him and getting fresh refills. Number four, do acts of mercy. This is what it said in Romans 12:8. What? With cheerfulness or with eagerness. Now, why would he say that unless he knows over time it's hard to step into the heavy? Over time, you keep putting yourself in these weighty, hard situations. You start to not be as eager, right? And so he's going, no, maintain that eagerness to jump right into the front lines. Okay, everyone else who doesn't have the gift of mercy, do not excuse yourself from the call to compassion. That's not their job, right? And second, I already said this, and let's encourage and pray for those on the front lines of this mercy ministry. It is heavy and exhausting. Use your gifts to provide the hospital supplies that they need, if that makes sense. Okay, our third and last gift, Romans 12:8. The one who contributes in generosity. This is the spiritual gift of giving. You're like, oh man, I hope I don't have this. No, it's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful gift. The word metadidomi, to impart or to share. This is what Ephesians 4 talked about when we work with our hands so that we will what? Have resources to share with those in need. The word broken down. Didomai just means to give. Meta means above or beyond. So this is what? To give beyond. Okay? This is taking our regular giving to God as believers, what some of you might call the tithe. It's taking that and it's going above and beyond that I want to give. And it says to do so with generosity, with freedom, with sincerity. There's a gladness and open heart in it. So here's our definition. The ability to joyfully give over and above out of one's own material resources to meet the needs of the church's ministries and individual people. In a word, you're generous. What are some examples biblically? Well, check out Luke 8, 2-3. Mary Magdalene, there she is again, just combo of gifts. Joanna and Susanna. And it says that these women, listen to this, provided for Jesus and his disciples during their ministry out of their own means. It's astounding. Have you ever read that? Have you ever caught that? There's these behind-the-scenes women funding Jesus' ministry? Amazing. How about Acts 4, 34-37, Barnabas and others. The early church, it says, was not needy. No one had a need. There wasn't a needy person among them. Well, how? Well, because owners of lands and houses were selling them and bringing the proceeds, laying them down at the apostles' feet to be distributed to anyone who had need. Phenomenal, right? You're like, well, great. I don't have properties to sell. I guess I'm good. No. You don't have to be wealthy to give generously. Look at 2 Corinthians 8, the Macedonian churches. So this is the Philippians and the Thessalonians. It says the grace of God was given to them so that in a severe test of affliction, in their extreme poverty, their abundance of joy overflowed into a wealth of generosity, it says. So that they gave, verse 3, according to their means, and even, here it is, beyond their means. Check this out. even earnestly begging us, Paul says, that they would have the privilege of giving. Begging to have the privilege of giving? Amazing, right? So that they could take part in the relief of the saints. The poor widow in Mark 12 dropping her last coin in the plate. Or how about this one? You probably haven't thought about this. Zacchaeus. Wow, what a change, right? Luke 19, here's the rich tax collector that nobody likes because he's taking their money. He meets Jesus, sees the generous grace of Jesus, and his heart does a 180. And what does it say that he does? Verse 8, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. You want to give half of everything you have away? Then he says, and anyone I've defrauded, I will restore it fourfold. I'm not only going to give him back the $1,000, I'm going to give him 4,000. Like that's spiritual gift of giving, showing up in a moment, the power and presence of the Spirit manifesting. Okay, how do you know if you have this gift? Well, if you have an eye for seeing the needs of people and ministries and you're eager to contribute, you will seek out opportunities without even being asked. I think giving people live gratefully. You will notice their gratitude. They're very aware of the blessings of God that they've received. And typically, number 4, I love this, they're usually excellent stewards of their resources. Why? Because they want to increase what they have so that they can give more away. And so they'll oftentimes restrict their own spending and live very meagerly so they can maximize their resources for others. I love that. They will view their resources through a lens of how can this be used by others. They will remain or prefer to remain low profile and unseen. They don't like credit. They'll see giving to a worthwhile project as an honor. And they're driven to see people rejoice in God's provision. Giving people are planning people. They're prepared and ready to give. And they like to motivate others to give through their own giving. They seek to give the highest quality of value of their gift possible, and they will see their resources as tools for God's use. They recognize He owns everything. And so when you're using your gift of giving, listen, needs are met, ministry is enabled, our mission is furthered, and stewardship is strengthened. And the picture of the church here is a power plant, right? These raw materials are being taken to supply the community with everything they need. You're enabling life to go. And when you do this, it's displaying the character of God as provider. Hey, listen, just personal testimony real quick. During seminary days, I was a full-time student, working full-time, making next to nothing. Lauren and I were kind of scraping by. Many of you have been there. You might be there right now. And to see the kindness of God through other believers showing up, we began to just have a journal of writing all the ways He was unexpectedly, supernaturally providing for our needs, right? When we planted the well and God called us to that, the part that I was looking forward to the least was fundraising, right? I just want to preach, I want to counsel, I want to help people. I don't want to deal with money, right? But how am I going to get paid? Well, the first 2 years, friends and families giving is what took care of my salary so the church could get established. How amazing is that, right? That's not to glorify them, it's to glorify the Lord. And the irony in that is that I went to school at OU, I studied finance. My thinking was I was going to go make money for Jesus. And here I was years later relying on the people who were making money to give to Jesus, right? It was a flip of the tables. What a beautiful vision, though, to honestly and purely go, I want to maximize all that I have so that I can give it away. What a beautiful ambition for the Lord. So ways to use this gift, well, there's regular giving ministry. Obviously, we're not a rich or old church. We live lean and we need you. But above and beyond projects like our building, right? In 2021, you guys, in our tininess of a church, gave a lot. Some of you I'm just going to give that stimulus check away. We had elementary students who were giving out of what they were making in their little summer lemonade stands and stuff, right? It was beautiful to see. We've written so many amazing songs that we have not recorded because we don't have the money to record them. What would it look like to give to something like that above and beyond? We need scholarships for student ministry camp this summer. Like, there are different things that you can use your funds for very, very specifically. Now, organically, man, I love seeing you do this as a church. I've seen people give their cars away, open their homes for nights or weeks for people, right? To give tools away, or meals, or clothes, or baby gear, or help with medical expenses. You've helped with utilities. Some of you have come up to me in different times, sometimes around Christmas gifts, and you're going, hey, who has a need? I don't want to know who it is, but what's the need? Tell me, I want to give it, I want to take care of it. And you almost threaten me. It's like that. You're in my face, like, tell me, right? Like, I'm sorry, okay, I'll find out. Because you're so eager to provide a need, and you do it behind the scenes anonymously, and it's beautiful. This is how you can do this organically. Now, ways to misuse this gift as we begin to wrap up. It's easy to use money to try and control outcomes or people, right? Be on guard for that. For seeking power or recognition. For focusing just on the temporal values and forgetting the spiritual. Sometimes you got to remember, when you attempt to encourage others to give, it can feel pressuring, because for you it's a joy and you love it, but it might not come across to them that way. Obviously, man, we're not about the prosperity gospel here, right? Where you're going to use money or giving, and you think sometimes very innocently even, that in your faith you are giving something to God, and he now is obligated to give something back to you. That's called the prosperity gospel, where we turn the giver into a genie for our own demands and means. That is not the gospel. And so you've got to be careful that you don't have this transactional mindset. I think there's a temptation to feel expectation or entitlement or preferential treatment. And you can easily think, well, because I was so generous, like, me and God are good. I don't have to do these other things in the church. Like, that's my thing. Let me encourage you, if you have the gift of giving, take the initiative in seeking out needs. Second, give joyfully, like Romans 12:8 says. And third, listen, hear me out. Teach others stewardship, y'all. What a way to multiply your giving by discipling others in giving, right? Okay, everyone else. If you happen to hear of others that are giving, obviously don't seek that out, but if you happen to hear that, don't over-glorify them and don't under-honor them. Let's appreciate that and let it fuel our praise of God. I've heard people say, well, if I had that much money, I'd be that generous too. No, you wouldn't. That's so easy to say. That is so hard to do. Often the more you have, the harder and the more tempting it is to hold on to that. Let's thank God for the grace in that person, moving them to give sacrificially and generously. And then second, humbly come with any needs through the proper channels. Like, if you have a need, don't necessarily go to the giver and ask. Like, what do? They laid it down at the apostles' feet, right? Go to your GC leader. Go to a pastor. I think that's a great way to present a need, and then we can help connect giver and need. And third, seek to steward your own resources so you too can give. So there we go. Serving, mercy, giving. All three playing a supportive role. Often it's overlooked. Often it's unseen, and yet mission critical at the end of the day, right? Without you, we break down. That's right. We need you. And so, as the band comes up, maybe today it's crystal clear to you, you have one of these gifts. Praise God. Let's just ask these questions. We're going to ask these questions every week. Do you have this gift? Number one. Are you using this gift? Number two. Maybe you know you have it. Are you using it? Are you sitting on it? Are you the one burying your talents in the ground? Number three. Okay, you might be using it. Are you flourishing in it? There's a difference between tiptoeing into the shallow end and cannonballing off the diving board. Are you fanning that into flame? Maybe today stoked you. Man, I want to be vibrant, joyful, using this gift, honing this gift, maximizing this gift to the glory of God. And if you're unsure, you're still unsure about some of your gifts, I'm going to read this quote to you by Sam Storms. I love this quote. And we're going to think about this quote throughout the series, okay? Listen to this. if we spend less time searching to identify our spiritual gifts and more time actually praying and giving and helping and teaching and serving and exhorting those around us, guess what? The likelihood greatly increases that we will walk headlong into our gifting without ever knowing what happened. God will more likely meet us with his gifts in the midst of trying to help his children than he ever would while we're taking a spiritual gifts analysis test. I love that, right? Just get off the sidelines. How can I serve someone? How can I minister to someone? And you're going to wake up and you go, oh, here are my gifts, and they're flourishing. In other words, lift your eyes off yourself. As we talk about gifts, it's going to be so easy to become internally gazed, right? Well, who am I? What do I have? Is this it? Is that it? Let's lift our eyes as we close today. I want to point you to the one all spiritual gifts were perfectly embodied in. The one who is our greatest servant, who not only identified our greatest needs, but he humbled himself all the way to earth, born as a helpless baby, joyfully coming under the people that he created in order to meet our very need. No job was too menial for this king as he stooped to wash our feet. He stared at the undone task of our salvation and he plunged himself into it until he uttered the cry of completion on the cross. It's finished. This task is done. What led him to such an act of service? Well, compassionate love. The one who sees and hears and knows our condition and then came down to do something about it. Jesus is the greatest man of mercy, who's rescued us out of our spiritual plight, as the disciples learned that stormy night on the sea when they asked him that penetrating question, do you even care? Yes! Of course Jesus cares. That's the whole point. He's brimming with mercy. He's stirred in his gut with compassion for you. All the miracles, the restoring of sight, the healing of diseases, the deliverance of demons, those are all just a picture to show the greater mercy in relieving our greater suffering of sin. Oh, Jesus is so rich in mercy. Reaching down to resuscitate us from the brink of hell and to send spiritually lame people leaping into the gates of heaven. Have mercy on me, a sinner. He has. And it's come at the cost of his own resources. Jesus, not just the greatest servant, not just the greatest man of mercy, the greatest giver. The most generous benefactor there ever was, the Lord of all creation, used his riches to what? Purchase our salvation. To lavish us with redeeming love. To fund our future inheritance. His wealth is now ours, and it's come to us because he became poor for us. He exhausted every resource to absorb our debt himself when he poured out his blood. In total agony, he didn't just give a tenth. He didn't just give a little bit more. He gave it all for you and I, so that he would lead us to the green pastures of pardon and the still waters of satisfaction and restore our soul. He set out a feast for us at his table and secured a room for us in his home. We would dwell with him forever, for surely his goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our life, and our cup overflows. Why? Because he's given generously. He's our good shepherd, and he came not to be served, but to serve. Let's pray. Jesus, we thank you. You are the greatest servant, the true and better merciful one, the ultimate giver. You've held nothing back from us. You've gone to the ultimate lengths behind the scenes to meet our needs what humiliation, what compassion, what generosity from you, Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. And so, thank you that you have now sent your very Spirit into us that we would reflect you and walk out of your power and presence the same things. Oh God, would you supercharge those in the room this morning with these gifts? Would you remind them how meaningful they are in the mission? Would you appreciate them and encourage them and lead them to use them better so that they would flourish and that we would not break down, but that we as a church would be strengthened in our mission? Let us as a body affirm one another this morning and serve one another this morning as we worship you now. In Jesus' name, amen.